in politics. And that is your first step into making bigger and better changes. Because at that point in time, you're recognized as a community leader, and all of a sudden, now your voice is elevated above everybody else's voice. You understand how that works? Let's get in there, let's make positive changes. Let's no longer just be out on the front of the steps here. Let's get into these buildings peacefully, righteously, so that they will listen to us at that point in time, and they will hear the words that are coming out of our mouths. They won't just see us on the news report and then dismiss us. Time for this behavior is to change. I want to thank all of the patriots that have come out today to stand and make a message. You guys are great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but all right, we're going to get some more stuff heating up. A little wisdom and guidance, and seems like the good Lord's been blessing us with a lot of humility. Because without that, and you think you got something, you think you're above it all, you're really lower than the gopher hole itself. So just remember that. Humility, compassion, and honor. They all goes hand in hand. Now let me go ahead and bring this next person who's right next to me. His name is Brad Conway. I've known him for many years, and he wants to address something. So I figured I'd go ahead and let him speak and go from there.
Love the t-shirts. Now, how many of you knew Johnny Cash, the Man in Black? You know why he always wore black? He wore it for men like Lavoy Finicum. He wore it for all people who were being oppressed by their government. God bless him, he was right. Someone needs to speak for them, and so he did. And I would like to recognize right now our veterans. Hey! I'm here because I love freedom. I'm here because I love liberty. And because I love the Constitution and the freedoms that it guarantees us. But now they are under assault. Our first priority should be the Constitution. The First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees us the very things that we're here today to enjoy. The freedom to peaceably assemble. Amen. Freedom of speech. Freedom of exercise of religion. And freedom from a government that is prevented by the Constitution from establishing a state religion. Amen. That's a very different thing than freedom from religion. Amen. The state wants to put religion out of the public forum. That's not what the Constitution says. I would like to speak out against government overreach. The government that takes property that has for sometimes 100 years or more, land and water rights have been held by families generation after generation, and now suddenly the government wants to take that away. That isn't right. For those of you who are also in support of the Second Amendment, many of you may not know that the right for an individual to keep and bear arms has not always been the interpretation of the Constitution. In 1876, 100 years after the Declaration of Independence, the Supreme Court decided that the individual did not have the right to bear arms. only the federal government had the right to keep and bear arms. Well, that ruling, after another 100 years, was overturned in U.S. versus Heller, and we got those rights back. Thanks in large part to a justice who just recently passed away. If not for him, we might not have had, again,
My
the
question
right to
is,
keep and
what
bear
gives the
arms as
government
individuals.
the right to set you up to buy firearms
Those who
and
remain
then
on the
tread on
Supreme
you
Court
when you
now
legally own
are
your
those
firearm?
spoke in dissent saying, no, if it was up to them, the right to keep and bear arms would only apply to the federal government once again. So if you think your right to keep and bear arms is sacred and safe, I'm sorry, it's not. You know very well it's under assault, no pun intended. And we do have to speak out against that government overreach that wants to take land, that wants to take property, and even take our lives if we dissent. What threat did the protesters in Malheur present? None. They weren't hurting anybody. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to make a point. They wanted to peaceably assemble, which was guaranteed under the First Amendment. How can this end in death? There is no logical way that I can come to a conclusion that a man who has fired no shots, has not pulled a weapon, there is no evidence, there is no need to shoot that man, and they shot him at least a half a dozen times. Now, I do not want to sound like someone critical of law enforcement, not in the least. The organizers here tried to get someone to come and speak as a representative of law enforcement, but they couldn't. My father was a state patrolman. He was a law enforcement officer. And we do support our military, we support our law enforcement, our first responders, and we support what they do up until the point where shots are fired and an investigation needs to be conducted, and it needs to be conducted in the daylight. We need to be apprised of the facts. We're not going to loot. We're not going to burn. We just want the checks and balances of the Constitution to work. And if a law enforcement officer has to, in the performance of his duty, use his weapon, he
Looks
has
like
to
Denver
be
Federal.
accountable for his action in the clear light of day. And if it was a good shoot, so be it. But anyone who's seen that video knows that it can bear two interpretations. One is, well, we hear from one side that it was a good shoot. Others look at it and say, no way could that have been a good shoot. The only way we're going to know is if the evidence is presented and the investigation is completed and we are allowed to hear both